Hey, members and patrons, just coming at you with another little behind the scenes video since we're approaching the end of February. I always, whenever I do one of these things, I always try to figure out, what's something I can talk about that's relevant to a video that I have released during this month. So last month it was VFX for the Transporters video. The month before that it was some behind the scenes about World War III. But something that's always relevant to what I do in my pipeline is making thumbnails, and I thought that today I might want to show you how I make my thumbnails. So, thumbnails for videos. In and of themselves are kind of like a work of art, right? I mean, I'm using this program Paint.net, which has Photoshop like features. We got different image layers. We got the background. We've got you know shadows and text and all that good stuff. And you can ignore that. But yeah, I always try to use the highest resolution images that I can to put into into these projects, even though the image itself is going to look small, right, on a computer screen. So I mean, stuff like this, like this is the biggest that I'll see these on my desktop for the most part, or I guess if I go to my home page, they're a little bit bigger. But yeah, I'm gonna make a thumbnail from scratch for you today. So um, as you can see, I mean, these are some of the thumbnails that I have already made for some of my other March videos. Something that I encounter quite often when I'm trying to make a thumbnail is uh, getting high resolution images. It's not always easy. So, I mean, for a video game character like Garrus here from Mass Effect, I mean, sometimes I can find a transparent or an image with a transparent background that is easy to, drop in here and you know alpha out the background because it's already there. Sometimes I do have to find an image that um, is like not high resolution and also has a background that I have to kind of key out, right? So right here you see Odo is in front of this background. Sometimes I have characters that are in front of backgrounds that are not uniform in color. Um, but today, let's go back just a little bit. Today I'm going to be making the thumbnail for my video about hybrids from Star Trek. So genetic hybrids, interspecies reproduction. This is a topic that was suggested on a live stream of mine. I get ideas for videos from there quite often, actually. So there's plenty of hybrid characters that we can use. Spock, Deanna Troy, plenty of others. I thought, let's use Belana Torres. I haven't used her in a thumbnail, I don't think, in any of my videos. And looky here, we just happened to have stumbled upon a high resolution image of her, a headshot with a background that's pretty uniform in color. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that and start working with it. So I'll drop it in here into Paint.net. Paint.net is free, by the way. I just want to emphasize that. I love working with free software, open source. So here we go. It's a nice looking image, right? And I always like to use headshots of characters because if you use an image or an instance of a character where it's like a medium shot or a wide shot, where they're just really small in the background, when that thumbnail gets scaled down, nobody's going to be able to tell what they're looking at. I mean, honestly. So that's why I like to do this. And usually I like to put them on the right third of the frame. I'm going to see how it looks with her on the left third of the frame so that her Starfleet insignia there, her comm badge, does not get covered up by the time code that's going to be in the bottom right corner. And that's also going to be relevant for where we put the text. So I'm going to get rid of this background layer because we don't really need it. We're not going to actually use that. So I always like to go in with the tool called the magic wand and kind of just hover it over some of these areas that are completely contrasty to the colors that we see in the image itself, or in the character themselves. Kind of scale it back a little bit. In fact, I might start over on that because I didn't get a good read with this color picker. Want to make sure that we're not like deleting segments of her hair, right? You can see there's a little bit that's getting cut off at the top. We want to minimize that as best as we can. So that's why it's going to be sort of piecemeal that we take this out. And this may not be the best demonstration of using this tool because it's, it works sometimes and sometimes it doesn't very well, but it's convenient instead of having to completely erase everything out of the background. And I'm adjusting the tolerance up here to get a clean cut. Here's what looks like it's going to be a nice clean cut that's not encroaching too much on her uniform. There we go. We took care of that. Here's this area up here, and there's a little reflection in her hair that we want to make sure doesn't get cut out. So yeah, it's not perfect yet, but that's why we're going to go in here with the eraser tool. Let's get a good size and just kind of clean up some of the jagged areas around here. Now I'm going to do something else in a minute that's rather optional, but it's going to help us kind of take care of some of these weird jagged edges a little bit more than we have so far. In fact, I need to go even smaller than that just to get here in the little creases and corners. I go through this process every time I make a thumbnail. And I've been making thumbnails like this for about a year as of when I'm recording this. And I think that my thumbnails look really good compared to especially what they used to look like. We got more saturated colors that we're working with. They're less busy. Sometimes less is more, as they say. If you look back in my catalog at the old thumbnails that I used to produce for my classic videos, they were more like abstract in a way, and these are to a degree as well. But there's a lot of transparency going on. There was a lot of layering of like background elements, and it was just kind of, I don't think they were bad, but it was just kind of busy, and they are also really not as saturated as they could have been. I'm not encroaching too far onto these pixels with this eraser tool because I don't want to dig in too much, and when you zoom out, it's not going to be as noticeable like some of these pixelated areas, especially as we do what we're going to do in a minute. The hair is always the hardest part, in my opinion. It's always the hardest part when designing a thumbnail because you have to worry about curls. You have to, worry about like how lighting and texture is affected. Sometimes I actually do have to really just kind of dig in and chop out like a part of a character's hair that is, too problematic to worry about trying to get the color and everything adjusted just right because of the way that light bounces off. And from a cinematography standpoint, like it looks really cool when you have a character whose hair is, you know, has like a little bit of rim lighting around it. Um, Try not to go too deep into here, but for our purposes, it's more perhaps more of a pain than it's worth. I've tried to make thumbnails in the past, temporary thumbnails just for conceptual purposes with um, people like Sylvia Tilley from Discovery, who, as you probably are aware, does not appear right now in any of the thumbnails on my channel because her there's no shots that I can get of her where her hair isn't interacting with the light in some way that makes it too complicated to get a nice transparent background out of. Hopefully, I'm not rambling on too much, but I do want to, not stay totally silent while I'm doing this, so I keep you all's interest. We're gonna be not rushing anything, but I'm actually going a little bit more in depth than I normally do with some of the specific strokes that I'm taking to kind of top off this rim lighting on the hair. Like I said, in a minute we'll actually make it kind of blend into the background some more. Paint.net does not have all of the tools that I would normally use in like a Photoshop session to do something like this, but again, it's also free. And not to get too into the weeds on that, but let's just say I stopped paying for uh, Adobe products like over 2 years ago. As soon as I graduated college, I was like, okay, we're not doing this anymore because even though Adobe's software is very powerful and obviously there's a reason it's the industry standard, don't really like their business model, but that's neither here nor there. Any editors out there can probably attest to that. That's why I use DaVinci as well. DaVinci Resolve, which you've seen showcased in a lot of behind the scenes videos and screenshots, editing timeline screenshots that I release for my videos, my community tab and Twitter and Patreon and all that. Like, it's free, and that doesn't mean it's free of bugs or anything. That doesn't have problems, but it does most of what I want from a nonlinear video editor, just like Paint.net does most of what I want from an image editor. All right, we may actually go back in a minute and kind of take care of some of those areas here where the blue is still showing through, and you can see there's still a little bit here on top. In fact, we might actually go in and take off some more, but not too much, so it doesn't look weird. There we go. We're doing a deeper cut, and this is actually going to, I think, make it look better in the long run. By the way, I'm using a mouse to do this. This probably would be easier if I were using my drawing tablet, but I don't have it out right now. I'm just using the mouse. This is the way I do it normally, actually. So it can be pretty challenging to get some of the strokes as smooth as they can be. And I think we'll just go ahead and kind of cut in here, maybe smooth this out. Again, there's probably better ways to do some of the things that I'm doing right now, but this is the way that I've been doing it for a long time. All right, I think we're chopping that block off right now, and yeah, that actually looks fine. It actually looks fine. There. That doesn't look bad at all. Still a little blue up here. Again, hopefully I'm not being too tedious with this, but hair is very important to take into consideration. If you hear any noise in the background, that's my air conditioner turning on. All right, we'll make sure that we didn't chop off too much. Zoom out a little bit. That's better. All right, that's enough of that. So next thing, and some people might do this in a different order, but the next thing is to bring in the background. So I use the Starfield. This is a still from the same VFX, AA VFX free stock clip that I use in a lot of my videos. And we're going to do some really crazy stuff to it right now. So we're going to, not that extreme, we're going to go pretty extreme on the brightness and contrast adjustments. You might say, well, what's the reason for that? Well, we want to make the background pop a little bit. And may even rotate it some just to see what that looks like. And we're zooming in, as you can see, pretty significantly. There we go. I actually like the way that looks. We'll be adjusting the color as well. We go into hue and saturation. I don't want to change the saturation, but get a different sort of combination of colors, perhaps. See if anything looks better. I don't know. You guys might be watching this and saying that some of the color combinations that I'm coming across do look better than the one that I will end up picking in all likelihood. I don't know. There's something about blue and green, or purple and green, I should say, that really just pops really nicely. Or actually, I should say, it is a perfect combination of not too loud, but also not too subdued either. I don't know. Does that look any better than this? I actually kind of think the way it looks here is fine. I may change my mind. And one other thing that I want to stress is that I do change my thumbnails quite a bit. I used to not do it as much, but now I'm doing it more often on the day of release, maybe a few days after release, changing the titles. And the reason that I do that is because as a YouTuber, like, I want people to click on my videos, right? I want them in front of as many eyeballs as I possibly can without going too far into like actual clickbait territory, because I think actual clickbait is like, equivalent to dishonesty. That's how a lot of people would define it. Like, if you're just being intentionally misleading, completely lying about what's in the video, that's true clickbait. But if you're trying to optimize a video with the thumbnail and the title to get more regular people to, click on it, even if the topic in the title is maybe buried, in subsequent chapters of the thing, I don't see a problem with that. I think that's, that's how you get more people engaged. And that's what we want, is more people to be engaged. Something that I should have done before I did the background, a step that I usually take, I'm actually going to lasso around the very outer edges of Balana's figure right here, and my mouse is had to readjust it, and this is going to make sense in a minute. And this is also not perfect by any means, by any stretch of the imagination, but I always like to blur it just a tiny bit, not that much, but like blur it by like 2 2 units, just so it kind of recedes into the background a little bit. Um, we can do some light brightness and contrast adjustments, but she actually looks fine the way she is. Um, there we go. Just kind of bumping both of those up a little bit. Can be working on the hair until the end of time. Um, all right, so what's next? Well, generally speaking, it's going to be text, and so I actually um, use different fonts. I've got a bunch of fonts that I've downloaded. They're not official fonts, but they are free fonts, so that's why I have them. Because we see more hybrids in the 24th century time frame. I'm actually going to be using the TNG font or an adapted TNG font, and that's way too big. I think that looks fantastic. And I like using yellow text because yellow is a pretty bright color. It stands out, it pops. And yeah, there's that's the end of the sentence. All right. And what I'm about to do now is also kind of janky, as they say, in terms of like a method. But this is a trick that my good friend Andrew over at Phobia Soft taught me. So I'm highlighting this layer, this text layer, Control C. Then I'm doing Control Shift V, Control Shift V, Control Shift V. And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm making the shadow. Now watch and learn. So Control Shift T, go all the way to each extreme on the brightness and contrast, and then Gaussian blur of 50. It's kind of arbitrary, but it works. Then on this layer, do the same thing. Control Shift T, enter. Control F to reapply the blurring effect. Control Shift T, enter. Control F. Now I'm going to merge these layers down and move it behind this, and look at that. That's a nice little drop shadow. It's dark but not too dark. It's thick but not too thick. It's soft but not too soft. It's just right, I think. And voila, that is a pretty good looking thumbnail. We're not totally done yet. I always like to do a drop shadow for the character. So highlight control with Control A, Control C, Control Shift V, Control Shift T, Control F. Not merge layer down, but move layer down. You see how much difference that makes? It's more noticeable on some images than others. Like for example, with Garrus here, like his shadow, if you take it away, the depth just is missing. But for here, I think it also works. Now, who wouldn't click this thumbnail? Who wouldn't click this thumbnail? We can do a few more adjustments with maybe the hue and saturation. I might, play around with different colors, color combinations. I might, for some reason, think that, the way it looks originally is too bland or whatever. Yeah, purple and green is always my go-to for some reason. It just really looks good, and I like to go even numbers. I don't know. I'm just worried that that's a little too dark. If we go brightness and contrast again, kind of take it down some more notches, take it in each direction a little bit more. I think that looks really good, if I do say so myself. And that's a thumbnail. Yeah, there may be instances where I go in and I'm even more like, hypercritical with how much of the hair I'm working on. I could work on it all day, honestly. But it's a little bit of rim lighting anyway. But yeah, this looks good. I really think this looks good. So, um, yeah, and like I said, I might even decide the day that I release this video that this thumbnail doesn't work for me and just do something else. It's all about experimentation. Um, in the interest of not keeping you all any longer, I will go ahead and probably sign off this video. This tutorial, I guess, this is what it is, has gone on long enough. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for what you do, all the support that you give me. It means so much. And yeah, I can't wait for you all to see this video and all the others that I have planned for March. Don't forget to stay awesome, because you already are. And I will see you next time. Peace. Live long and prosper.